Hello all, tribalkai coming back here with another spoiler video for Crimson Vow, and there's a quick one that I wanted to go over from yesterday that got spoiled after I released the video first, getting straight into it here. Catilda Dawnheart Martyr. Apparently Catilda's died, she was a human from the last set. Flying lifelink protection from vampires. Is 3 mana, mono white, legendary of course, a spirit warlock, and it is star, so its power and toughness equal to the number of permanents you control that are either spirits or enchantments, going with the whole aura sub-theme of spirits this time around. And yeah, really like this one. Probably only use it in the 99 of my spirit deck that I'm going to make. I want to go with the face card of the precon. But it's really good. It's flying, lifelink, massive, evasive, probably keep you in the game for a few turns because you do want to absolutely litter the board with spirits, so this thing's going to be huge, gain you a bunch of life and whack your opponents for a massive amount of damage all at the same time. The disturb cost on it is 5 mana, so obviously casting that from the graveyard, and it's an enchantment aura that goes on a creature and does exactly the same thing, so +X, where X is the number of permanents that are spirits and or enchantments, has protection from vampires, flying and lifelink, so you just make your commander again basically, or the creature that's in the 99, make another copy of Matilda. It will obviously have the other keywords on the creature as well if it has any, so could get even more upside there, but really just love this as the 3 mana creature because it's going to be a huge beater. Then it's a reprint in Splendid Reclamation. That is 4 mana in green. All your lands that are in the graveyard come back in tapped, so really good in lands matter decks. Don't know if this had grown expensive over the years, but well, it's always good to see reprints before they get expensive, even if they haven't become expensive yet. Yeah, reprint, glad to see it. Winged Portent is the last one that came out yesterday. An instant 3 mana in blue. I was really excited about this when I first read it. Draw a card for each creature with flying that you control. Great in the spirit deck. 3 mana instant speed. Draw a boatload of cards because you're going to have a load of spirits in play. Apparently that would have been way too strong. I mean, I'm inclined to agree with it. Still disappointing though, because the cleave cost is 6 and it has green in it. So you can't play it in your Azorius deck unless you're playing a Bant spirit deck. That would be draw a card for each creature you control if you pay it for the cleave cost. So it goes really well in the Edric lists, the ones where it's lots of small creatures, unblockable, going wide, drawing cards off the Edric Spymaster of Trest. Say you can't get Edric into play, or it's been Song of the Dryads or something like that, then this is a great card for some redundancy in that deck, I think. Then we're on to today's spoilers. Want to mention an uncommon first. Wolfkin Outcast is an uncommon for 6 green, or 5 and a green for 6 mana in total. A 5/4, costs 2 less if you control a wolf or a werewolf. You would assume that you are going to in a werewolf deck. So that makes this cost 4 for any of you that aren't mathematicians. And at that point, it's a 5/4 for 4 mana. So yeah, pretty good there, but it's the werewolf that I'm interested in. It turns into a 6/5 with Nightbound, and it becomes the Wedding Crasher. Whenever it or another wolf or werewolf you control dies, draw a card. So this is really great wrath protection in the werewolf deck. You do need it to be the Nightbound version in order to get the wrath protection, so you're going to have to kind of suss out whether or not it's worth playing or not, but it is more difficult to flip back into Daybound because your opponents need to cast a couple of spells. In Commander, I don't know if it's all that difficult really, because we're casting multiple spells a turn consistently. That will come up on another werewolf card that we'll talk about later. So yeah, while I would love this to be great wrath protection, when you really delve into it, is it going to be the human more often than it's the werewolf? Yeah, not quite sure. It will obviously be something that you'll have to pay attention to as you play your Tovalor deck or whatever werewolf commander you've gone for. And while we're on the subject of mono green werewolves, we'll just go to that card that I was going to go to later. We'll just go to it now. 6 mana for a mythic 4/4 called Avabrook Caretaker. It has hexproof, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2+ counters on another target creature you control. Okay, probably not good enough for a 6 mana creature, but it's the other side that people seem to be worried about. I don't think this is all that worrisome, to be honest, but becomes Hollowhenge Huntmaster, a 6/6 with hexproof, gives your other permanents that you control hexproof, And at the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2+ counters on each creature you control. Really good in Tovolar, but outside of that, I don't think it's all that much to worry about, really, because, like I said, it's seldom that a player will not cast any spells during their turn in eedi-H, and then it's quite commonplace for a player to play more than one spell in a turn. So that means that it's going to be the human side more often than it's the werewolf side, in my experience of the format at least. So if you're playing it in the Tovolar werewolf deck, then this will be really, really good. Buff your entire army and keep players from doing swords to plowshares in combat and stuff like that. But outside of that, I really don't see this as being much of an issue. I think some people are worrying about this for no good reason. Probably because it's going hand in hand with the whole narrative of green cards are getting really, really good, and the green creature cards in particular are getting really good. It's just this one in particular we don't need to worry about, I think. A mono blue commander now, Jacob Hauken, Investigator, only 2 mana for a legendary human advisor, but it's only a 0/2 body. For a tap, you draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down, and you can look at it for as long as it remains exiled. Then you may pay 6 mana. If you do, transform it, and it turns into a legendary enchantment called Hauken's Theory. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at the card as long as it remains exiled. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a spell from cards exiled by this permanent without paying the mana cost. So, yeah, that means that when you're setting it up, it turns into the enchantment, and then you can make use of the card you exiled with its ability immediately. And then obviously you're setting up with it after the fact with the enchantment. You're getting that effect every turn. So this alongside scroll racks and fast tutors and Sensei's Divining Top, things like that, Future Sight, so that you can kind of work out what's on top of your library. Yeah, really, really good. It's kind of like another Prismatic Vista. And for only 2 mana in the command zone, very, very powerful, I imagine. Round to vampires for the first time in this video now. Olivia's Attendant, 6 mana for a 6/6 with Menace in mono red. So a pretty good body there. Whenever Olivia's Attendants deal damage, that is any damage, create that many blood tokens. So an auto include in the blood token strategy. I've said before I don't really like the whole blood token thing. I could be convinced it's an enabler for... what's that mechanic? It's an enabler for madness, goes well with Anya and things like that, so maybe making a vampire tribal Anya list is more viable now. Yeah, not quite sure, but it's not really for me, to be honest. And then for 3 mana, it deals 1 damage to any target, so if you've got a surplus of mana from treasures and things like that, or if you're in a Rakdos deck, you've got Cabal Coffers, Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, then you could use that as a mana sink, not a particularly good one, but it does enable itself at least. We went over the Tree Folk, I think it was a Tree Folk from yesterday, but another little piece of Doran support here, Catapult Fodder for 3 mana, a 1/5 zombie. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures that have more toughness than power, you transform it into Catapult Captain, and that is a zombie, a 2/6. For 3, tap and sacrifice another creature. Target opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. Noteworthy that it is loss of life as opposed to damage, so any means of damage prevention isn't going to help them there. It might be a way to push the extra damage through with Doran and those types of decks. Yeah, it's just fling on a stick basically, so I think it's a cool card to point out. Now the one that we were all so excited about, Edgar Markov, and this is Edgar Charmed Groom. And I'll say it right now, I'm pretty disappointed with this, in all honesty. It is 4 mana in Orzhov for a 4/4 Vampire Noble, gives other vampires you control +1/+1, and that's about it until it transforms. When it dies, return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control, so you do that straight away as soon as it dies. Edgar Markov's Coffin is a legendary artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white and black vampire creature token with lifelink and put a bloodline counter on the coffin. If there's 3 or more bloodline counters on it, remove them and transform it back into the Edgar Markov creature side. So from a design and a flavour perspective, it's really good, it's really clever. Edgar Markov goes away for a long time, 3 turns is a long time, and the vampires are obviously still around while he's away, but then when Edgar comes back, he makes the vampires more powerful. So from a flavour perspective, from a design perspective, it's really good, but as Edgar Markov, as a legendary vampire creature, the legendary vampire creature we were waiting for from the set, it's pretty disappointing in my opinion. I look at the legendary artifact, that's the side that's more interesting to me, because the other side is just an anthem. Like, we've got a 2-mana white and black vampire that does exactly the same thing, so the creature-based side isn't all that much to write home about. But Edgar Markov's Coffin is a bitter blossom for vampires, so I'm not particularly happy about this. I'm going to build a deck around it and see how it does, but in black and white vampires, I just don't see why you wouldn't go for Elenda the Dusk Rose, for instance. So yeah, that's a shame. Pretty disappointed with that one. Hopefully Odric. We do know that Odric is a vampire in this set because of... Is it Murder? No, it was Hero's Downfall that was reprinted and downshifted in rarity, so that's an uncommon now for the Pauper players. And we know in the flavour text of that Odric has been bitten by a vampire and is now a vampire, so might see a mono white Odric. And then another very brief one, an uncommon in Boros, 4 mana, a 1/3 vampire called Markov Waltzer. Flying and haste at the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 2 target creatures you control, each get +1 to their power. Only reason I want to point this out is because we saw an Orzhov commander before Edgar Markov was spoiled, foreshadowing that he was an Orzhov commander, and I think they've done the exact same thing here, except it's for Odric, so I think we can assume that Odric is going to be a Boros vampire, so a white and red vampire. Just a bit of foreshadowing here, I assume. Anyway, this is a werewolf that's actually really good, Ill-Tempered Hermit, for 4 mana, a 3/3 in mono red, human werewolf of course. Whenever it is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target, so we already have an enchantment that does that, and it's really, really powerful. This one can also pay 2 mana to buff its power by 2, not really interested in that. Yeah, it's that ability of being able to cast a Blasphemous Act or a Chain Reaction or something and deal a whole bunch of damage to it and then bounce that off onto something else. Effects like that are really powerful. Flips into Halpax Avenger. When a permanent you control is dealt damage, then it deals that much damage to any target. So it is noteworthy that it's the creature doing it, and this affects any creature being hit. So Blasphemous Act and Chain Reaction and the like just become even better in that regard, because the spell is hitting all of your creatures, and this will throw all that damage at something. Like I said, it's noteworthy that it's the creature that's doing it. So Death Touch, I won't imagine would be too relevant, but say you have something like Basilisk Collar, which could actually be quite flavourful. You've got Basilisk Collar, that gives lifelink and Death Touch, and then the creature's dealing the damage, so you would gain the life back, you would deal Death Touch damage to a creature. So, might not be relevant, might be relevant. It's just something to consider. Wouldn't necessarily have to go in a werewolf deck, could go in Torbran or something like that. Only a couple more to go over as it stands right now. Hullbreaker Horror is a Kraken Horror, 7/8 for 5, 6, 7 mana in mono blue, has flash, can't be countered, really good so far. Whenever you cast this spell, choose up to 1. Return a target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, so that can get around uncounterable and things like that. Return a target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, so you can either bounce a permanent or you can bounce a spell, basically. This will be really cool in the Runo Stromkirk deck, the one that cares about krakens and sea creatures in general, and it's also just a really good card on its own. A little bit pricey, a little bit expensive, but in a deck like that that wants to cheat out big krakens and stuff and bounce a load of permanents, yeah, would be a really fun one to play around, I think. And the last one I want to go over for this video is Howling Moon. It is an enchantment for 3 mana in green. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target wolf or werewolf you control gets +2/+2 until the end of the turn. Not really too fussed about that, but whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, you get a 2/2 wolf creature token. So your werewolves are going to flip back into the daytime human mode, but you'll at least get a wolf in the equation. So it's pretty good. I mean, the whole werewolf thing, it's annoying to me that I can't freeze my werewolves in werewolf mode, you know, and then the whole fact that Wizards aren't deciding to retcon the original Innistrad werewolves So you have to have this weird kind of Tovlar workaround. Yeah, the whole thing's a bit strange. This is a cool card, but I don't think I'd be including it in the Tovlar upgrades, to be honest. There's too many werewolves to sift through now, and I think we have a lot of really good ones, so cool card if you've got it, but I don't think it's particularly good enough to run. And that's it for this spoiler video. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Be sure to leave it a thumbs up and share it with your friends if you did. I do have more gameplay videos coming, so be sure to look forward to those. I'm tribalkai on the eedi-H channel. Thank you for watching.